Welcome to Catching Up with Council. I'm your host, Leah Haslage. Today we'll be catching up with Ward 6 Councilman Blaine Griffin. Welcome, Councilman.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you for having me today.
So tell us about your ward and what neighborhoods it's comprised of.
Well, Ward 6 is a great neighborhood. It has the second largest economy in the entire city of Cleveland outside of downtown. Of course, it's home to our largest employer, Cleveland Clinic. But I call it a Dickensian model of a ward because we have some serious challenges in the ward, but we also have some great opportunities. It represents Little Italy, Larchmere, Fairfax, the University Circle area, the Buckeye Shaker area. It goes over to the East 93rd, Kinsman, Union Miles, all the way down to Slavic Village. So it's a very unique ward, but I love it. It's great. It's very, very great ward.
Keeps you busy for sure.
It keeps me busy. There's never a dull moment, but that's why I love this job, because I love the people. And one of the things that I say on all my social media sites is I love Ward 6 and I love CLE. And that's the reason why I love this job, because of the people and the great diversity that we have there.
How long have you represented Ward 6?
I represented Ward 6 since May of 2017. So May of 2017, I was appointed. The then council person, Mamie Mitchell, recommended me for the position. Council affirmed that recommendation. I ran for office in November of 2007 and became the duly elected council member in 2017. Of course, before I became a council person, I spent 11 years in the Jackson administration. It was some of the greatest years of my life, really working with people like yourself and others around the Jackson administration as well.
That's what I was going to ask. What did you do prior to being a councilman, and where did you grow up? Give us a little background about yourself.
Well, I originally grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. When I was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio, South Side kid, I tell everybody I was forged in the shadows of abandoned steel mills. So my challenges were just like a lot of the neighborhoods that I represent now. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to be a pretty decent athlete, so I went to Malone College in Canton, Ohio, where I received my degree there in a bachelor in liberal arts from Malone College in Canton, Ohio. But athletics and basketball was my way into that opportunity. Once I left there, I was raised by a single mother named Erlene Bentley, and once I left there, she was actually in school just finishing up at Case Western Reserve, where she was receiving her master's, and she introduced me to her estranged father. His name was Claude West Bentley Sr., and he was a longshoreman who I had never met. And he and I hit it off. He wound up getting a terminal illness, and then my mother talked me into coming up here and taking care of him. And as I was taking care of him, my free time, I would explore this city, and I fell in love with this city. So back in 1992, I officially became a full-blown Clevelander. So I tell everybody, this is my home. I love this city and this town.
When did you decide that you want to get involved in politics and in public service?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people ask me that. And one of my first jobs that I had is I was a counselor and a community organizer from the Harvard Community Services Center and then East End Neighborhood House. And being a community organizer, I began to see the challenges of the community. And it really doubled up when I began working with some of these young men and women, many of who I stay in touch with to this day, that were formerly that were gang members and that would get referred to my program, and I would put them through what's called a Rites of Passage program to really help facilitate their transition from childhood to adulthood. And as I began to deal with these young folks, I began to see how the system really was oppressing these young people. And I began to become involved with a lot of the politicians, a lot of the judges, because I became an advocate for these young men and women, because I felt that they were being treated unfairly. Yeah. And I felt that I wanted to take every opportunity I can to advocate for those young folks. And that still is in my heart today, and why I became involved with public service.
Very good. Now, with City Council, you're the chairman for the Health and Human Services Committee. Hot topic right now, a big discussion is on the lead poisoning issue. What's being done with that situation right now?
Well, first of all, the Health and Human Services Committee is a great opportunity. Being a healthcare mecca and having 4 major hospitals and all of the innovation that we have here, where we have Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals, Metro Health Systems, St. Vincent's Charities, it's great to just be the Health and Human Services chair. Plus, we have a great philanthropic community, and we have a great community with social services. Case Western Reserve, for example, is the 9th ranked social service school in the entire United States. So I really felt that it was a great opportunity to really get something done, to really deal with some of the most vexing and complex issues that our community is dealing with right now. And I want to say we look at it holistically. We look at everything from the high infant mortality morbidity rates, lead, which I'll get to in a moment, which is critical, that hurts a lot of young people, preschool and low educational attainment, crushing poverty, the criminal justice complex. And now we're dealing with things like opioid abuse, but then we also are dealing with a wave that's going through our community that's regarding recreational marijuana, and really looking at changing our laws around marijuana. Of course, we know we have legal medical marijuana, but now you see municipalities and states and government really looking at marijuana in a different way, and trying to make sure that when we look at this change, that we don't have a disparate impact on people that have been charged with those low-level crimes in the past. So holistically, I see a great opportunity to really deal with health and human services, as well as structural and institutional racism that we know has caused a lot of issues, to undesign the red line, as some may call it. But with lead specifically, we know that we have at least right now, we show 25% of the people going into kindergarten testing, positive for high levels, high EBLs, elevated blood levels. And we know that we have a crisis on our hands, because that hurts all the development. It often leads to some of the social determinants that I just talked about, as well as it leads to violence and crime and other type of things that really hinder young people from fully obtaining their potential. So we really reached out to several different, the corporate structure, groups like Sherwin-Williams. We reached out to the hospitals. We've reached out to a lot of other institutions and philanthropic groups to really try to have a holistic approach to this, to deal with systemic change. Now, we're going to look at policy, which a lot of people want us to, look at our policies. We're going to look at our policy, and we're going to really take a hard look at it with these internal and external partners. But we also need the resources. We also need, in order to deal with these issues, and we also need to make sure that we do something that's sustainable, not something that's just going to, reduce this for a couple of months or a couple of years, and then we're back to the same point. So.
Right. What do you think people get wrong, misunderstand about the lead crisis?
That they don't understand the housing problem. Lead is one thing on how people are, getting poisoned is another thing, which is housing, which is soil, because if you got chip paint and it gets into the soil, but a lot of it is a housing issue. And a lot of people don't understand that with our aging infrastructure, our housing, I think 90% of the housing in Cleveland was built before 1978. Right. And before 1978, everything had lead. Lead was in gas and everything else. But I will say this, there has been some significant strides being made to deal with lead. The demolition of some of these vacant and abandoned houses that were causing some of the problem with lead poisoning. Really trying to, council is looking at engaging the inspectors, the community engagement inspectors. Really, Councilman Brancatelli is leading that up to really try to make sure that we bring those inspectors back that can genuinely engage with these homeowners, because if you deal with it from a government solution, you're going to deal with it from a technical standpoint, right, which means it often ends up into a criminal system. So we want to try to be able to have an iron fist but a velvet glove. We want to be able to help landowners. We want to be able to make sure that we have tools in place to make sure we advocate for the tenants, but we also want to hold people accountable. Yes. So that's what we're trying to do, and we built a good partner network of more than almost 70 people that are really signed up and excited and really trying to take on this complicated issue, because it is complicated.
It's many layers.
Yes, it is.
Now with council, you're a majority whip.
Yes.
What exactly does that position entail? And for those that may not be familiar, what is a majority whip?
Majority whip is the third ranking council member on Cleveland City Council. You have the president, council president, then you have the majority leader, which is Phyllis Cleveland. Council president is Kevin Kelly, and then I'm the majority whip. I'm really the relationship guy. I'm the one that really tries to make sure that I connect all of the 17 council members to make sure that their concerns that they're bringing from their corner of the area that they serve are connected to the larger body's mission of making sure that we move forth policy and that we hold everyone accountable at the table. At the end of the day, I really work hard to try to count votes. To make sure that we have the votes that are needed in order to make sure that we pass the legislation that are being done, because a lot of people don't know this, but even legislation that I may introduce in my own ward doesn't just pass because I want it to pass.
Right.
I have to go and make sure that 16 others support the legislative matters that I put forth. So we're looking at large policy issues as we go through the budget opportunities. I really advocate with the leadership team to make sure that everybody's voice is heard as we make decisions. And I take that seriously because I'm proud to be a member of this body, and I want to make sure everybody feels that their voice is being heard and that they represent a piece of this body.
What's the hardest part about being majority whip?
You have a lot of different perspectives, even though we're all Democrats, because under our system, the reason that I'm the majority whip is because all of council, all 17 members are Democrats. If some of us were Republicans, then it may be a minority whip, because if there were like 4 Republicans, then there would probably be a minority leader and a minority whip.
Someone represent that side.
Because we're all on one side. But really making sure that you help everybody. I'm a big fan of cowboy movies and mafia movies. I know, shame on me. But one of the guys that I always liked was a guy named Meyer Lansky. And one of the things Meyer Lansky was known for is to make sure that everybody got their piece, that everybody felt like they were taken care of, that everybody felt like the constituency that they represented, that they were being treated fairly, to make sure that they provided for the constituencies that they represent. And that's what I try to do, is really work closely with the council president and majority leader to make sure that everybody can utilize this body as getting things done in their ward, but also working with us collectively to get things done as a city.
Make sure no one's left out.
Make sure no one's left out, and make sure that everybody is also on the same page. And that could be challenging at times because there's different perspectives, and anytime that you have different perspectives, you're going to have different thoughts and opinions, and we are all strong-willed people. But at the end of the day, I believe that all of these folks believe that I'm approachable, even some of the folks that have some of the most fervent disagreements.
Well, you have a lot of great new projects coming up in your ward, especially housing. Tell us about some of that.
I'm so excited about the housing opportunities, I'll be honest with you. Innovation Square is something that I think we have a great opportunity to do right in the background of the Cleveland Clinic along the 105th Street area. Innovation Square, I think we have some great opportunities there. We have a co-development partnership with a group that we really believe that it's going to be shovels in the ground real soon. St. Luke's Point, which is great. We know that we had approximately $3 million or almost $4 million investment in the Rapid Station right there at 116th and Shaker Boulevard. But we also have housing that we're looking at doing over there. We have scattered housing through Habitat for Humanity that's putting housing in places like Grandview and all up in that Woodland Hills area. We have the Woodhill Choice Grant, which we're one of 6 neighborhoods throughout the United States that received a planning grant that often leads to really trying to look at how we deconcentrate poverty along that Woodland Hills area, which is, ironically, we mentioned the Health and Human Services Committee, one of the areas that, or the area that has the highest, the least likely life expectancy in that area. And you know, that's the reason why doing these kind of projects are critical. We're looking at a lot of public art projects along the East 93rd corridor between Miles, along with my good colleague Kevin Bishop, and the Kinsman corridor, so that we can have public art and really try to bring pride and a sense of honor in that neighborhood. And then we have the Mayor's Transformation Alliance, which is going to focus along the Buckeye and Woodhill corridors. So right now what we've been doing is what I call getting everybody shovel ready. We've been making sure that we take care of and take down the blighted properties so that we could try to grow these communities that's often been disinvested in and have experienced years of blight and disinvestment.
Now, part of your neighborhoods are being impacted by Opportunity Corridor. For those that are not familiar, explain what Opportunity Corridor is, and how do you think it's going to continue to impact and influence your award?
Well, Opportunity Corridor, quite frankly, I'm excited about it because it went through an area that was pretty much abandoned in the city of Cleveland. It was called the Forgotten Triangle, and it was an area that you've seen a lot of dumping, a lot of just abandonment, a lot of old housing that was abandoned, old factories. So now you build this transportation corridor, which is not a highway or freeway. We actually, through the leadership of working with the mayor along with council, made sure that the infrastructures are in place, that we have brownfield cleanup. When I say infrastructure, I mean utility infrastructure. I'm a big fan of making sure that we have bays that we can, if we get the right provider, we can lay fiber optics in order to have the high-speed internet that we have that businesses look at as a tool, which is vital. And then also making sure that we have training, that people have access to the construction jobs, but also to the training for the thousands of jobs that are being created in the University Circle and Cleveland Clinic footprint. So when we attach Innovation Square to Opportunity Corridor, which it goes right through, we want to attract some of those mid-tier professionals, those family-sustaining jobs, that the family-sustaining wages, in-demand jobs like phlebotomy, as well as environmental services that are growing, because when you grow these healthcare jobs, you also get IT that grows and other things. And we want to try to attract those folks that live in our community. And I also can't miss, one of my favorite neighborhoods is Little Italy, which is just great. I mean, I have a great time up there. It's growing, great opportunities, development happening there as well.
I love Little Italy.
It's great, it's great.
So there's so much more development to get into, but we're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
So don't change that channel. We'll be right back with more Catching Up with Council.
Until all our daughters are safe. Until all our children have families. Until all our families have homes. Until all our parents are cared for. We'll be here.
Did you know that University Circle was once home to the world's largest indoor ice skating rink? Or that doctors from Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital were leaders in developing infant formula? Discover these stories and more with Circle Walk, a self-guided walking tour exploring University Circle, Ohio's most spectacular square mile. Each one of the 40 locations tells an engaging story that highlights the people, places, and institutions that make University Circle unique. Learn more about your favorite places and uncover new parts of the neighborhood through our web-based app. Or the old-fashioned way. Learn about the rich history of the Circle and how our past and present are shaping the future. Find yourself in the Circle with Circle Walk.
Welcome back to Catching Up with Council. I'm your host, Leah Haslidge. Today we're catching up with Ward 6 Councilman Blaine Griffin. Welcome back.
Hey Leah, thanks for having me.
So recently you had a community forum with the new CEO of Cleveland Clinic. Tell us about that forum and What came from it?
Yes, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Tommy Mihaljevic and his team, the Cleveland Clinic team. Not only did Dr. Mihaljevic come out, but he brought 18 of his top executives out to really engage with the community in a genuine way. Many members of the community said this had never happened before. We met at Karamu. The process came because in October of 2018, Dr. Mihaljevic and myself, we got out of our cars. We walked the neighborhood. We walked the Fairfax neighborhood, and we didn't just stay on the main streets. We actually walked through alleyways, and I had him interact with people who were sitting on their porches and kids at the park, and saying, "This is the gentleman that basically is the head of that institution, and I want you to tell us, what do you think about your opportunities?" And we had a genuine engagement, and through that engagement, we said we wanted to go back out and engage the community. I interviewed him on the stage. We took questions from the community. Then we had breakout sessions where each of his 18 executives sat down at the table with leaders from Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation. And I really had to give a shout out to Denise Van Leer, who from Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation really helped put together a very thorough process. We've gotten feedback from that. We've put the video on YouTube. People can look at YouTube and actually review what we talked about, because we want to be open and transparent. And we stay in touch on a regular basis because in the past, the clinic and the neighborhood, the relationship between the two has not always been great. And we had to acknowledge that. And we had to acknowledge on how we can actually overcome years of mistrust, and how we can make sure that we have access to the jobs that are available there, how we can make sure that we take advantage of world-class healthcare and research facilities that they have there. There's no reason why we shouldn't have some of the medical disparities that we have when we have a world-class institution that we operate right up under, right there in the neighborhood. And then last but not least, fair and equitable development. How do we make sure as they grow, because they're not going anywhere, that they don't infringe upon the community or displace people in the community, and that we don't allow gentrification to happen in a way that the community feels like they're being pushed out. We want to try to set up a model that is similar to what Nationwide did in Columbus, where they actually said we treat the community like a patient. We want to try to get the clinic to invest in grocery stores and housing and all kinds of other development in that area. So we have a plan that we feel that can be inclusive and not be exclusive. So that's what we really try to accomplish. It's going to be a work in progress.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight, and it's something that was just the first step of many steps that we're going to take along the journey to really rebuild trust and make sure that the community has a true benefit from this great institution.
How do you find that balance when clinic in particular, I mean, UH is over there as well, but it's expanding, but you don't want to infringe on these homes and take up all the land? Like, how do you find that balance?
Well, like I said, you got to make sure that you have consistent community engagement. You have to make sure you hold people accountable. As much as I really, really enjoy the folks at the clinic, if there's times when we disagree or we're not on the same page, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to tell them, hey, this is not what's in the community's best interest. And I want the community to feel clear about making sure that they hold everyone accountable. This is going to take a prolonged engagement where we can't just have one meeting, high five each other, and then say everybody is happy. This is going to take time. This is going to take small steps because I may get this saying wrong, but they say that, trust is built in drops, but it's lost in buckets. Yeah. So, you build trust little by little, but you could lose a bucket full like that in the instant. So we're really trying to build those trusts piece by piece, drop by drop. And then at the end of the day, I just always want to make sure that the people that live there that are second and third generation homeowners and property owners, that they are treated fairly and that they feel that they can be a part of any renaissance that we have in that neighborhood.
Well, a project I'm excited to personally learn about right now is you are part of the re-envisioning and retooling in Shaker Square and the parks and that over there. Tell us about this project, and do we get any scoops?
Oh, I'm excited. I mean, I am excited about that. We have engaged an architect is being co-led by Cleveland Neighborhood Progress and Land Studios. The architect that we have chosen is world-renowned. They had, some of the people that are working on that project put together the lovely public square that we have downtown. They've also been involved in looking at college campuses and Olympic Park in Atlanta and other places like that, as well as other places around the world. So we want to make this a place where it's friendly. Shaker Square is interesting because we see this as a very important connection point to a lot of the uptown entertainment, education, arts districts. You have Shaker Square, you have the Larchmere community, you have Coventry, even though it's not Cleveland, it's Cleveland Heights. You have Fairmont Cedar, you have Little Italy, you have University Circle. And what we want to do is try to find ways that we can connect all of those cultural assets, even when you look at Buckeye and the rich history and culture that we have there. But it's very interesting because on the southwest side of Shaker Square, there's a very different demographic than there is on the northeast side. The northeast side is where you have a lot of wealthy, college-educated folks, and then on the southwest side, you have a lot of people that live below the average median income, people that may not have a college degree. But we have to create a welcoming place where all of these folks can come and bring energy and a synergy and really try to make Shaker Square back to the glory days. And I got to commend Peter Rubin, who's the owner of the square, that has really opened up this process. And I think that we're going to get somewhere with this that's going to be great. I happen to live in the community, and I think it's great.
I love going to Shaker Square, so I'm excited to see what's going to develop more with that.
It's great. It's great.
Now, the neighborhood development corporations that you work with, and there's quite a few, and knowing how much your ward envelops, tell us about the projects that they're involved in right now and how they're helping the neighborhoods.
Right. Well, I'll start out with Slavic Village. Slavic Village is well known. They do a lot of work around housing, around looking at an eco-friendly environment. They've really taken on the methodology of really looking at ecosystem planning, which we're really looking at embracing over there. Burton Bell Carr is a great asset, which is working with us on housing rehabilitation, as well as they're working on it with us on the arts project. Union Miles Development Corporation is headed up by a great young lady who I've been on a long time named Rashawn Sample, that has really done a lot around training and empowering the community and the community voice, and have done a great job of really trying to help with development and the arts projects along that area. We partnered with them to do a coat drive last year, so they've done a great job with that. You have, right now you have the Little Italy Redevelopment Corporation, great team of leaders over there that really protect the cultural asset that community is, because it's a hot place in Little Italy and people want to build over there, but they try to make sure that the texture and context of that community stays intact. And then right now we're in a very interesting process where we're really trying to re-envision, as we talk about Shaker Square and Larchmere, we're trying to re-envision how that community should be served. We have two traditional organizations, which is Buckeye Area Development and Shaker Area Development, that have experienced some challenges through the last few years. But now we're looking at how we can bring the community together, which I've commissioned the process along with Director Tanya Maness to try to link it with University Circle and try to envision what type of format we need in order to really engage that community in a new, revamped way. And that's what we're in the process of doing, and we want it driven from community up, not top down.
That's exciting.
It's exciting
stuff.
and fun.
So what is the best part of being a councilman?
I love people. I love, like I said, I love Ward 6 and I love CLE. Every day you wake up, there's a different challenge. One day, I tell people, as being a council person, you're not asked to be an expert at one thing, but you are asked to know a little bit about everything. So it's really rewarding when you can work with an elderly person and make sure that they get a roof on their house that they've been living in since the 1950s or 1960s. It's rewarding when we can actually bring a community together to really deal with quality of life issues in our community. There was recently a convenience store that I'll name nameless right now that we didn't feel was the best fit for one of our neighborhoods, and the neighbors got together with me and we spoke out against that, and we were able to stop that convenience store from coming into the neighborhood. It's rewarding when we could talk about housing development. It's rewarding when I can go out in the neighborhood and see young people and basically be an inspiration to them to say one day you can grow up to be not like me but better than me, and I want to provide the platform for you to have a healthy, productive life. It's rewarding when you wake up every day and you know that your life has purpose, and you know that the people of this city mean so much that you're willing to put it all on the line every day. So I love Ward 6, I love CLE, and it's just great. It's one of the greatest jobs that I've ever had.
I have to ask, what's the worst part of the job?
Well, the worst part of the job is when you see some of the poverty, some of the distress. You often, I can recall going into a room full of parents at one of the schools, and there was such a level of depression, you could feel the gravity of hopelessness. And as I began talking to them, you could just see they just, many of them have just given up, but they were shocked at the fact that somebody was there really trying to, take the time to really deal with them, because I tell everybody that, my motto is I'll deal with you in the boardroom and the streets. I want that range. I want to make sure that I could deal with somebody, the prince and the pauper, the people in the neighborhoods, the people that's dealing with tremendous amount of stress and pain and suffering, but also people that are benefiting from Cleveland, because there are people that are making money in this city. Mm-hmm. So the challenge is watching people go through the pain, the stress, to watch a young person or a family lose somebody to violence, to hear about some young person who has so much trauma and so much stress and so much toxic stress that they can't, function regularly on a regular basis. That's painful to me. It hurts. It's something that I deal with the challenge of it every day. And you have to balance the joy and the pain in this job. But at the end of the day, it's rewarding, because I feel like this is the purpose that I have.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have of either you personally or of being a councilman?
One, because sometimes if you're not a council person that's on the ground, or they don't see you, or they don't touch or feel you, people want to touch, see, feel, taste change. And sometimes when they don't see that change, or if it's done too gradual, or if it's not done with a sense of urgency, they feel like public servants don't care. And every day, and I just tell you a story, I like to put things in the context of a story. When I was a younger man and I got pretty good at basketball, I had a coach, and I told him I don't have to prove myself anymore. I've arrived. I know what I'm doing. I'm good at this. I don't have to play with these guys anymore. Their talent is not on my level. And he looked at me and he humbled me and he said, listen, son, you always have to prove yourself. You always have to wake up every day. You can't take this job for granted. You have to go out there every single day, because every single day you'll be challenged with complex and vexing issues. And I tell people, the misconception that people have is that we don't work our butt off, because we work very hard. We give our life to this. Our families have to sacrifice for this. So people don't understand the gravity of what we do as council people, that pretty much most of us have between 25 to 30,000 people that we represent. And if you count some of the people that come into our communities, like, University Circle, which has probably more than 20,000 people, and the churches that come in our community, which is probably 5,000 people on every Sunday, the enormous responsibility that you feel to serve those people on a regular basis. And sometimes people don't understand that, and they don't get that, because they're dealing with their own issues. But we don't do this for rewards or awards. We do this because this is what we're supposed to do. I owe a tremendous debt to communities like this, because it raised me. So every day I feel like I'm paying off a tremendous debt for a person that did this for me. And I feel like I'm planting trees under whose shade I may never sit, but I'm gonna do it for the generations that come after us.
What else do you think people should know about Ward 6?
Ward 6 is open for you. We want you to move into Ward 6. We want you to take advantage of Ward 6, all of the great, rich, cultural arts institutions, all of the great districts that we all talked about. We want you to come to Ward 6 and consider it a destination. As you go through this entire area and this entire arena, we want you to make sure that you make a stop through Ward 6 because we believe we have a lot to offer. And like I said, we're open to the community. We want to grow this area. We want to bring in international students and visitors. We want them to move here. So we don't want them just to come here and go to college. We want them to make this home once they finish their schools. I know we'll deal with visa issues and all that other stuff later, but we want to make this their home. So Ward 6 is open, and Ward 6 has a bright future. I can't tell you, I'm a little biased to some of my colleagues, but Ward 6 is the greatest community in the city of Cleveland.
How can we get more information on Ward 6 and contact you?
Well, you can always go to the City of Cleveland Council website. You can always get information there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Griff at Ward 6. My nickname is Griff. People call me Griff. But it's Griff at, and it's Griff, WARD 6 CLE. So that's Griff, capital G, RIFF, Ward 6 CLE. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, please feel free to follow me on Twitter. I try to give as many updates as possible, although I'm not near as good as some of my colleagues with their social media game. They got me beat in that. I have to apologize.
I mean, as a councilman, I'm sure your inbox is always full and your phone's always ringing, so add social media to it.
Right. But I tell everybody I return every call. That's number one. So if you really want to get through to me, you call me, because one rule that I'm old school that way is that I return calls and I walk the neighborhood when it's not 0 degrees outside, sometimes even when it is 0 degrees outside. But I am proud to serve this community, and thank you, Channel 20, for really giving us the platform and the opportunity to really talk to the city of Cleveland in this unique and passionate way.
Thank you so much for being here, Councilman. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Leila.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Appreciate
and
you.
Thank you for tuning in. Of course, we'll have all this information for you on our blog, tv20cleveland.com. I'm your host, Leah Hasledge. Until next time.